My name is Marcia Spink, and I'm the Associate Director for Policy and Science at EPA Region 3's Air Protection Division in Philadelphia. This is Clean Air Act 101, Module 4, Title 4 on acid rain. This presentation is brought to you from the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards in Research Triangle Park. Title 4, Acid Rain. Acid rain or deposition occurs when sulfur dioxide, SO2, and nitrogen oxide, NOx emissions are transformed in the atmosphere and returned to Earth in rain, fog, and snow. Acid rain damages lakes, harms forests and buildings, contributes to reduced visibility, and is suspected of damaging health. The pollutants that form acid rain come mostly from the burning of fossil fuels in electric generating units, or EGUs. Now, before the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments, EPA could not address the problem of acid rain directly. There were, and are, the stack height provisions of Section 123 of the Clean Air Act for sources built after 1970. Stack heights are limited to good engineering practice when modeling the impacts for purposes of Title I of the Clean Air Act, or SIPS. No other dispersion techniques are allowed either, meaning any intermittent or supplemental controls varying with atmospheric conditions. Now let me explain this a little. Before the 1990 Clean Air Act, because we couldn't control acid rain directly, we were concerned that sources had built tall stacks, so tall so that you wouldn't see the impact on the ground and our monitors wouldn't pick them up for purposes of non-attainment. However, the total load to the environment was still producing acid rain. But the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments granted EPA the authority to deal with acid rain directly. And under the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments, cap and trade went national as far as controlling acid rain. Sulfur dioxide. A 10 million ton reduction from 1980 levels, primarily from utilities, had to be achieved. It capped annual utility SO2 emissions at approximately 8.9 million tons by the year 2000. Allowances. SO2 reductions are met through an innovative market-based system. Affected sources were allocated allowances based on required emission reductions and past energy use. An allowance is worth 1 ton of SO2 and is fully marketable. Sources must hold allowances equal to their level of emissions or face a $2,000 per excess ton penalty and a requirement to offset excess tons in future years. EPA also holds special sales and auctions of allowances. SO2 emission reductions were achieved in 2 phases. Phase 1 allowances were allocated to large units of 100 megawatts or greater that emit more than 2.5 pounds per million BTU in an amount equal to 2.5 pounds per million BTU times their 1985 to 1987 energy usage. That's their baseline. Phase 1 had to be met by 1995, but units that installed certain control technologies were allowed to postpone compliance until 1997 and were potentially eligible for bonus allowances. Units in Illinois, Indiana, or Ohio were allotted a pro rata share of an additional 200,000 allowances annually during Phase 1. In Phase 2, which began in 2000, all utility units greater than 25 megawatts that emit at a rate above 1.2 million pounds per BTU were allocated allowances at that rate times their baseline fuel consumption. Cleaner plants generally were provided with 20% more allowances than would have been received based on their baseline fuel consumption. 50,000 bonus allowances were allocated to plants in 10 Midwestern states that made reductions in Phase 1. With regard to nitrogen oxides, utility NOx reductions were required to achieve a 2 million ton reduction from 1980 levels. Reductions were accomplished through required EPA performance standards for certain existing boilers in Phase 1 and others in Phase 2. Title IV of the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments directed EPA to develop a revised NOx NSPS, New Source Performance Standard, which you find at 40 CFR Part 60 for utility boilers. Repowering. Units repowering with qualifying clean coal technologies received a 4-year extension for Phase 2 compliance. Such units may be exempt from new source review requirements and new source performance standards. Now, to fully understand this, please see Section 415B of the Clean Air Act. Energy conservation and renewable energy projects. Under Title IV, these projects were eligible to be allocated a portion of up to $300,000 incentive allowances. Clean coal technologies. Under the 1990 Clean Air Amendments, certain clean coal technology demonstration projects may be exempt from NSPS, new source review, and Title I non-attainment requirements. Monitoring. Title IV of the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments requires continuous emission monitors or an equivalent for SO2 and NOx on sources subject to the acid rain program. So how do we implement the acid rain program? The buying, selling, and trading of allowances is tracked by EPA. The acid rain program is implemented through permit condition of a subject source's Title V operating permit. Title V operating permits are the subject of Module 5 of Clean Air 101. This concludes Module 4 on acid rain of Clean Air Act 101.